Okay. All right. So we are going to discuss Jira today as part of the application that we use to manage our work. Jira. As you can see, we have the Jira software, right? And that's what we use to track our work. Um, so if you see, once you log in, right? Once you log in, it's kind of similar to ServiceNow, what I discussed last class. So this right here will be the banner on the top, right? Where you can see who is logged in. So you can see I'm logged in as Godfrey,
Are you
right?
supposed to be showing us? Because I can't see it.
What?
Are
You're
you
not
supposed to be,
sharing
yeah,
my screen?
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
I
my
don't think you're sharing your
God.
screen yet.
Oh my God. I need to learn how to share my screen, right? Oh, okay. And right here up on the top is what we call, is what we call the banner, right? Remember ServiceNow, we were talking about the banner. That's how it looks like. And as you can see, I'm set in here, you can see my name, the account manager, whatever, right? My profile, my settings, whatever I want to use, and I can log out here, right? On the banner as well, there's also a setting that I can use to, kind of set up what type of projects I want to use, billing and all that. You guys don't really need to go into details with the settings, okay? And this is the help section where you need any help. You can come here and, try to search for help. Notification is, let's say, where you're going to get like, DM, when someone DMs you, you're going to get your notifications over here, right? Of course, we have to search. You can come here and search for any issues or any tickets that's associated with you. It's have to do with like keywords. So you can put in a keyword, or remember how we have the ticket number? I was talking about tickets for ServiceNow. You can put your ticket number in here. So for instance, you get a call from, you call T-Mobile, hey, my bill is too high, right? And then they give you a reference number. This is where you're going to put that reference number to search for the ticket, right, that you complained about. This create button right here, it's very massive. You're going to use it all the time. This is what you use to create an issue, right? So every time I hit create, that's what happens, but I'll go into details as well. Of course, you have your apps. Now, Jira is an application that, deals with multiple apps. It's kind of communicate with multiple apps. Slack right here is a communication application, right? That we normally use to communicate, okay? These ones, as you can see, X-ray, these are like new. I don't really know. I haven't used any of these, but X-ray, as you can see, it's for testing. And then we have Figma, which is for design, right? And there are more apps that you can go into details to see, right? Which Jira is a product of, right? Of course, you're gonna have your teams where you can create a team, you can have team members, see who's on your team and so on and so forth. Your dashboard, you're gonna have a dashboard, depending on the project that you're on, that's gonna show you a graph of all the tickets, what is closed, what's not closed, so on and so forth. So the dashboard, you don't really have to know much about dashboard. Some teams like to use dashboard to monitor, how they're doing as a team, right? Also, we have the filter where you can come here and search, just like, you have the search button right here. You can do all your filter settings over here. Projects, view the type of projects that you are in. Also your work, whatever you do on Jira is recorded, right? So you can come here and track all your work, right? So as you can see here, there's stuff that's assigned to me, stuff that's recent, and also there's boards, right? The type of boards you are assigned to. And then of course the Jira software, but pay attention to this, right? So this is the Jira software itself. There's a Jira Work Management, which is a new software that Jira is bringing out. Also, administration is a setting. As an administrator, you can go in here and do all your settings. Confluence. Now, you guys need to pay attention. Confluence, it's one of the top ones that a lot of teams like you to have experience of. It's similar to Jira, right? But a lot of team, basically what Confluence does is we use Confluence for documentation purposes, right? Like did you guys talk about SharePoint? You talked about SharePoint, right? I think I remember Salis asked you guys what SharePoint was. No? Yes? No, it was Sam. Sam asked you guys what SharePoint was. You guys remember? Yes, no?
It's like a software you can share documents and different kind of like a space for your job.
Exactly.
The only one that knew.
What was that?
I'm
Who
saying
is
she's
that?
the only one that knew that day when
She was-
Sam asked.
When Sam asked, and you
Yeah.
guys didn't put it in the back of your mind.
Oh, well, now we have, but I'm just saying.
So think of Confluence as like, it's where you guys are going to host documents, right? That you guys can all go in there. So think of it as we're going to put you guys into WhatsApp group, right? And some of you guys are going to have to go in there and edit some people's work. You guys have all used Microsoft Word before, right? The online version. And then you go in and then you try to, edit some of the work. And what Microsoft does is it tracks whoever is editing the work, right? That's what Confluence is more like, but it's more for like, collaboration and document hosting, right? We talked about Jira Service Management. This one is normally used for like, most similar to like ServiceNow, right? They use it for ticketing purposes only, mostly. And I talked about Slack. I don't know what this one is, but it says modern incident management. So I'm guessing it's more similar to the Jira Service Management as well. So there are multiple products that Jira bring out to users. Okay. This right here, you're gonna have. You guys remember what this one was called, right? This was like the application navigator where you go and then you try to navigate through stuff. And this one right here, this part right here will be like your content frame. Remember, I told you guys these applications are similar, right? So of course you have the banner, you have the the navigation, the navigator, right? Application navigator, and then you have the content frame. Okay. So roadmap. Okay. So roadmap, it's self-explanatory, right? So think of it like you are going to DC, okay? We are a team and we are going to DC. And then we say, okay, we need to get to DC by August, right? You guys discuss what sprints are, right? So sprints are like, like we're running sprints, like relay, whatever it is, right? You run a sprint, you give it to the next one, then the next person picks it up and then run, right? So with every sprint that you guys go, let's say you guys need to get to DC by August, right? So within this short periods, you guys are going to have sprints, right? Within them. So the roadmap basically kind of tracks the sprint that you guys are doing, right? And how far you guys are going to get to DC. Does that make sense? Yes, no, maybe so. Yeah. Who is sleeping? So I can pick on them. Okay, I don't see no one sleeping. All right, good. We have the backlog. This is going to be very, very, very important, right? For the roadmap, normally you guys are not going to be touching on roadmap because managers are the people who needs to track, right? If you're going to have scrum masters, they are going to be the ones who are going to track the roadmap, right? But the backlog is where, as a BA, you need to always know where the backlog is. Okay, if you are not going to learn anything from today, just remember that we're going to have Jira, right? We're going to have the create button here, and then we're going to have the backlog. If you're not going to remember anything from today, just remember these two, please. The create button and then also the backlog. Okay, what the backlog does is whatever you create, right, in Jira, you're going to see in the backlog. Okay, whatever a user creates in Jira, you're going to see it in the backlog. All right, so let's say I create an issue and I want to see what the issue is about, right? Maybe I create an issue, you know, let me just do it so you guys could see it, right? So I could just do like test, and then, you know, I start to fill out an application where like writing a ticket, right? I don't need to fill all these things out, but yeah, I just test the application and then I hit create. What happens? It comes to the backlog, right? So this is the backlog. When I go to the backlog, you can see it right there. Okay. Yeah, as you can see, when I created the issue, everything was vanished, but then it comes to the backlog and then I get a notification that I created this issue. Okay. We have the board. Excuse me. You guys need to remember back in school, we used to have the blackboard, Yolanda. Remember Monverno days? Yeah. Think of the board. That's the same board that we have here, right? We use this board to track, you know, our daily scrum, right? What did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? And, you know, do you have any blockers? This is the board we use to ask these questions, okay? So the boards actually know three things from today: the boards, backlog, and then the create button. Okay, know these three. I promise you, you're going to use it all the time.
Godfred, will you be able
Yes.
to explain to them what like the product backlog is, the difference between the product backlog and the sprint backlog?
Sure. So, oh, you didn't go through with them, right? Product backlog versus sprint backlog.
I did, but I wanted you to show them so they will have an idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is right. This one right here, right, is what we call the sprint backlog. Okay. So this one right here, let's say we are using Jira as a team, right? And this is the backlog that we are using. Whatever we create, we as a team, let's say Tax Solutions Team 1, we are able to see whatever we create in the backlog. So that's what the sprint backlog is, right? The team is able to see it. Now, if we talk about the product backlog, right? The product owners are the ones that have visibility of it, right? So they also have the same process, right? They have the same thing, but basically they have, like, you know, huge amount of work on the product backlog. It's still the same feature, right? But the only thing is it's on the product side versus the sprint, the team side, right? So the team sees one thing, but the product owner also sees another thing. So think of it like McDonald's, right? Someone comes from McDonald's and, you know, they have a manager and he comes and says, hey guys, I need you guys to help me create a website, right? So that I can have people order food from online. Okay. So what you're gonna do is they are gonna have McDonald's is gonna have a manager, right? The manager of McDonald's is gonna have a whole list of items that he wants in his website, right? He might want people to order online, he might want people to pay online, he might want people to deliver, and so on and so forth, right? So what the list of the items that he has is what we call the product backlog, right? He knows what he wants. Most of the times the clients will bring the thing out and they don't really know what they want. Hey, I want McDonald's drive-through. I want people to fly in the sky and then they can order online. How the heck are we going to do that? Right? We are an IT team. We don't know. You got to, tell us how to get there, right? But most of the time the client is going to come and they will give you something crazy and you as a team have to figure it out, right? And ask a lot of questions to get more information from the client. How are we going to get it up high, right? Are we going to build a bumper to get up high? Like, what the heck are we going to do? Are we going to have to get an airplane? Ask all these questions to have the team help the team figure these things out, okay? Does that make sense? So you guys know the difference between the product backlog versus the sprint backlog? Yes, no, maybe so.
The product backlog, you could say, is only the managers can see this, which contains all the different sprints within the project being worked on.
Not quite. So, the product backlog, right, is what the product owner sees. Does that make sense? Think of it, it's explains itself, right? The product backlog. The backlog is something that, like, let's say your backpack, you have a lot of things in your backpack and you start removing it every time, right? When you need them, right? So they have a lot of issues in the backpack that they only know what's in there and they can pick it up and say, hey, you guys are a team. Can you take this and then go use it, right? And build it up for me. Does that make sense?
So is that what they use to create the user stories?
So for user stories, right, this is how you create user stories. The create button is what we use to create user stories, right? So I'll get into details on how to create user stories. This one we have epics, tags, and so on and so forth. But I'll get into details on how to create user stories. But this button right here is what we use to create the user stories. Okay. Does that make sense? Am I confusing you guys, or you know the difference between a sprint backlog and a product backlog?
Yeah, you're confusing me too. But my baby is crying, so excuse me if you guys hear noise in the back. But the key word Godfrey mentioned is the product backlog is pretty much what the product owner owns, right? But as far as seeing, they will be able to see those. The team will be able to see the items also. So as a business analyst, when you are creating the stories, you are creating the stories and putting them in a backlog, the product backlog. The client owns it. Remember when we talked about who creates a requirement? The business analyst creates the requirement, but who owns it and who needs it is the product owner, right? To make things simplified and things more easier to read and understand. So currently oh my gosh, sorry. So currently what Godfred has on right now is going to consist of you can create sprints, and then you can create all stories, and it's going to show up on the product backlog, right? But then when you get into the sprints, the to-do column, that is where the sprint backlog will be. So he's going to get into that further. So that's what I wanted to add.
So is the sprint backlog like within the product backlog?
No, the sprint backlog is going to be within the sprint. So Godfrey, are you able to click on one of the sprints to go on the sprint board?
So let's say this is a sprint board, right?
Yeah.
This is the boards.
Yeah, so the to-do column is something that we called the sprint backlog, because every item that that's going to consist of the sprint is going to be added to the to-do column, right? And you can have like 5 or more columns. It all depends on the team and how it works best for them. Usually administrators will add more columns in here, but because Godfrey is an admin, I see a plus sign, so that means he can add a column. So on the sprint backlog is all the items that are going to be under the to-do for the sprint. These are what the sprint backlog is going to consist of. So the to-do column would be what the sprint backlog is. Does that make sense? So those are the difference between a sprint backlog and a product backlog. The sprint backlog is going to contain the items relating to the sprint, and then the product backlog, which is the backlog that Godfrey has hovered over, that is going to contain all the items pertaining to the product, including sprints. Oh, shoot. Sorry.
Make sense? Yes, no, maybe so.
Yes.
Okay. So you might be in a team also, right? That maybe on the customer side, right? The customer is probably going to be using something like ServiceNow, right? And you guys are going to be using Jira, as a team, right? It could get a little bit confusing in that stance. Like, how do we get, those backlog to put that, in our team's backlog, right? That's where you as a BA, as a BA, you need to own the backlog. That's why I told you guys, these are like the number 3 things that you need from this page. You need to know how to create, how to go to the backlog and own it, and then also the boards, right? But for the board, mostly the Scrum Master, or depending on the team, it could be the business analyst. He's going to be the person leading the daily Scrum. So you have to own these 3 buttons right here, these 3 features, right? You have to own them and make sure you are the one putting tickets in there, checking the backlog to make sure it has the user stories that's needed, and so on and so forth. Does that make sense? I won't get too much into reports. You can, there's so many reports that you can develop. Remember, I was talking about how you have a dashboard to kind of view what the team is doing within a sprint and so on and so forth. That's what the reports are supposed to do for you. Issues. This is where you can come to kind of find all the issues that you guys or the team within your team have, generated, and you can search all of them here, right? We have development, we have code, we have releases. These are mostly used for, when we talk about a release, right? You guys know what a release is. Yes, no? I see some nodding yes.
No.
Some people are not on video. Okay, you guys don't know what a release is. So think of it as, iPhone. They set when the new iPhone comes on, right? iPhone 15, 14, 15, yeah. When iPhone 15 comes on, what happens? They give us a release date, right? That's basically what it is. It's a new feature that they're about to release. So when they give us a release date, hey, iPhone 15 is coming on the 15th, right, of November. then everyone start preparing and trying to go in there to see how to get a hands on the new iPhone to play around with it, right? Because it's a system. Does that make sense? We have deployments on call. These are like some of the operational stuff that, you know, the development team, the developers use, you know, to track some of the cloud works that they do. So I wouldn't worry about this as much. I won't worry about pretty much about this as a BA. And we have project pages and so on and so forth. These features right here, I won't pretty much worry about. But what I want you guys to worry about is the boards, the backlog, and then how to create an issue. Okay. So does anyone, like, you guys have seen how Jira looks like, right? Yes. Are you guys Jira gurus now or no? Kiana going like, yeah, no. She's used ServiceNow, so she knows. Is it similar? You think it's similar? Kiana?
Kinda.
See?
Some stuff, it wouldn't look like that though, but
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Trust me, once you start using it, right, it's just like you using a new iPhone, right? You're like, what the heck is this? Before you know it, you're like doing it with your eyes closed. But excuse me. Let me go into this again, go back to the PowerPoint and show you guys. What is it? 40 minutes. What's going on? I hate this thing. Oh, damn it. Can't even minimize this thing. There we go. Okay. Okay. I showed you guys what Jira looks like. Do you guys want to refresh your memory or should we keep on going? Take a quick break or keep on going?
You can keep going.
Keep going? Okay. Let's keep going. All right, so Jira. So Jira is a software application used for issue tracking and project management, right? So remember I talked about, you know, we talked about management tools, right? And Jira happens to be one of them that we said management tools are anything that we use to track a team's work, right? So there you have it. It's an application used for tracking and managing projects, right? It is used by agile development teams to track issues, right? So reason why Jira came about is because of agile, right? We're doing agile as a team. We're doing sprints, right? Within short periods, we're doing increments. So back then we used to have waterfall, you know, and I keep using the mobile applications as an example. You know, back then you wouldn't know the new iPhone is coming out, right? Before you know it, we have a new iPhone and, you know, there's no tracking or anything. You know, we just have like the Samsung, right? The Galaxy, right? Remember the one that they had to bring back because it was catching fire and so on and so forth, right? What happened was they probably were rushing and didn't do enough testing within their agile framework, right? That's why they had that issue of, you know, that fire and everything going on with those phones. But in terms of agile, we have every you know, 2 weeks, right? We have a product that we have to bring out to the team, and make sure that, okay, this is a new feature that, we've added to the sprint, or we've added to the application, and people go around and then start users go around and then start using them. So within Agile, within Jira, we have what we call the issue, right? So remember when I started creating an item here, right? You see how it pops up and says create an issue? So that's what it's doing. I'm creating an issue, okay? So every time I hit the create button, what I'm doing is I'm creating an issue, right? And you guys need to take notes. Issue would be in a form, because I know for a fact this is going to be in your finals, and it's going to be an exam that you guys have to prepare for. Issue can be in a form of bugs, stories, epics, and then also task. Okay. Bug, stories, epic, and task. All right. Let me know when to move on. Okay. So I will explain what an epic is, what a story is, and what a task is, right? But Jira tracks items in the concept of issues. Once again, it's a repetition of what Jira is. Issues can be bugs, feature requests, epic stories, tasks that you want to track, okay? Each issue has a variety of associated information, okay? So within the task, epic, story, and bugs, right? It has its, variety of information that you need to fulfill in order to create that issue, right? So let's say if I click on issues or epic, right? There are some rules that I have to fulfill in order to create that epic, right? If I click on stories, there are some rules also that I have to follow. So they're not going to be the same, right? But they all have their specific, associated fields that I need to make sure I fulfill before I can create that issue, okay? But in general, every issue that you're going to create is going to have a summary, a description of the issue, right? And this is depending on which company that you join, but most popular ones that you're going to see are a summary, description of the issue, the project in which the issue belongs to, components within a project which are associated with the issue, also the version of the project which are affected by the issue, right? The environment in which it occurs, right? So now let me talk about this a little bit. The environment in which the issue occurs, right? We have in Agile, right? We have 4 stages that we normally bring our product to. We run them through in order to get into a release, okay? So say iPhone 15, right? We need to get iPhone 15 out by November 15th, okay? We start our development. We start off with development phase. It's explained itself. In the development phase, this is where we do all the development. So we'll get our requirements gathered. We'll get, all our stories in the backlog, right? And then, we make sure we go through all the Scrum ceremonies and then we start our development, right? So in the development environment, okay, what normally happens is the developers put that on there just so they can kind of see and start adding stuff to it, right? So even though this Jira application that I'm seeing, right? I'm seeing this Jira application, there might be a development environment, right? Where we can go there and play around on it, right? We could just do anything that we want. We can click on the roadmap and add issues to it. And sometimes it's going to record, and it's a site made for the development team to kind of like, you know, play around and see how the system is actually going to behave. Does that make sense? So the development stage is where the developers basically go in there to develop the application to see how it's going to react. And then we have the testing stage, okay? The testing environment is where we go. Remember, we have testers as well. They go and then they test our application to see, okay, is it acting like it's supposed to act, right? Is the McDonald's website acting like it's supposed to act? Is the Samsung or iPhone website acting like it's supposed to act? That's the testing stage. And then we have staging. Staging is where, you know, it's the last steps of the process where we get approvals and make sure that, okay, the issue that we fixed or whatever it is that we developed, right, it's accurate and, you know, ready for production for us to launch. So let's say if there's an issue within this application if there is an issue within the application that we worked on, we should be able to catch it during the development stage or the testing stage, right? Or the staging stage. You can't deploy an issue into production and try to say, oh, because you've been through all these 3 stages and you need to catch any issue that's within the application that you guys have developed, right? So as a BA, you have to always do some manual testing with the application itself too, right? Just to make sure, okay, this is working as I reported, as I, the BA, it's working as what I documented, okay? Because if something goes wrong, they're going to start looking at documentation. They're going to start looking at, you know, who reported it and so on and so forth. So if you don't track back on your work, don't look at, you know, what you wrote and what is being developed, then, you know, it falls back to you and you might end up losing your job. You don't want that to happen. So always keep track of, you know, all issues that you enter into Jira. And remember, everything that you enter in Jira is being recorded. So you need to make sure that you're putting the right stuff in there. Any questions from there? Okay. There's going to be some questions. So the priority of it being fixed, right? Did you guys talk about impact and urgency as the priority of an issue being fixed? Yes, no, maybe so. No?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so you guys talked about it, right? No. Okay. So you guys need to write this down. When priority is based on the impact and then the urgency of which an issue needs to be fixed. Okay. It is based on the impact and then the urgency. All right. So if we have a building, right, and there is fire in that building, okay, on the basement, there's fire going on in the basement, and then there's let's say a light bulb switching on the 6th floor, okay. As a team who is supposed to fix that situation, right, which ones are you going to go to first? Hello.
Fire.
Exactly. We go to the fire first, right? Because we know it's life threatening and it's a top priority, right? We need to make sure the fire is, we quench out the fire before we get to the twitching of the light. Okay. So that's how like requirement gathering is. So the customer might come to you and say, hey, I need to have people make payments on my website. And that's my number one priority. Okay. And then again, they will say, hey, I want to also make sure I receive an online order, right? So as a team, you always want to make sure that you are taking the payments as a number one priority because the customer came to you and said that's the number one thing that they need. So for that sprint or that release that you guys are about to have, your focus should be on the number one priority, which is going to be payments. Make sense? So it's, and who brings up the priority? It's the stakeholder or the customer, right? They always bring out the priority. They're going to tell you this is my priority versus this is not a top priority. And then the team will start focusing on it. Okay.
I got a question.
Yes,
Is
sir.
it the same as story points?
No, story points are different. It's story points are mostly used by developers, and I'll get into that throughout this presentation. But it's mostly used by developers to assess how much or how long it would take them to develop their application.
Okay, okay. Yeah, it somewhat sounds familiar when it comes to the terms of like how long it takes to actually do something, as well as the sense of urgency. So I thought maybe they were similar to like a certain aspect.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions? Okay. So we're still talking about, issue type, right? This is basically how to fill out an issue. Okay. Remember when we were doing ServiceNow, we talked about forms, right? You guys remember? So when I decide to create an issue, this is the form that we're talking about. So it's a form that you need to fill out in order to create that issue. Okay. So back to the PowerPoint. You are also going to have to see the assigned developer to work on it. Is that always the case? No. Sometimes you're going to have some issues in the backlog that doesn't have a developer assigned to it. And how are you guys going to assign developers? During the grooming session or during, the sprint, what is it called? I'm blanking out on this backlog refinement, right? That's when we're going to have developers and say, hey, Godfred, can you work on this issue? And so on and so forth. That's where the story points and stuff is going to come in. But for the meantime, you just have to know that most of the time there needs to be a developer, kind of assigned to that issue that's going to be worked on. The reporter is going to be automatic, right? If I create an issue in Jira, if I hit create, Jira is going to report it on there that Godfred had created an issue, right? In the back, right? And when I click on it, right, as you can see, it has the reporter and it says it's Godfred. That's why I keep telling you guys that everything that you do on Jira is tracked. So you can't go out there and put something, mess up and say, hey, I didn't do it. We go back and then we see that your name is written all over it. So make sure it tracks the time I created it, time I updated it, so on and so forth. Okay. So you always want to make sure that you're keeping track of what it is. The status of the issue, all right? When we talk about the status, we have different types of statuses within JIRA, right? Or within the issue. And sometimes you might be in a company that has a whole bunch of status, right? But the most popular ones will be what is in to do, in progress, and also done, right? That will be the most popular status that we have. But some organizations will try to make their status so complicated. And, you know, so, like my job, we have status about 50 statuses on just one report. So it gets very frustrating. And as a BA, you're like, okay, so from here, which stage or which status should we put next, right? It could get very tricky. But just know that normally we will have 3 status, which is the to do, in progress, and done, right? A full history log of all field changes that have occurred, right? So remember I showed you guys, history log. This is an example of a history log. You can also click on history and it will tell you how many minutes someone created the issue for, right? So everything that you're doing is being tracked. So you guys know how to fill out a form in JIRA? Yeah? Okay. We are developing some JIRA gurus. Okay. So let's talk about epics, right? We want to create an epic, okay? So think of epic as a big umbrella, right? It's a big umbrella followed by, what's underneath, right? Or think of it as like the godfather, or I mean the grandfather, right? The grandparents. That's what the epic is. So you have the grandparents, and then you have the mom, and then you have the parents, right? So the grandparent, the parents, and then you have the children, right? So that's what the epic it's about. It's more like the main Adam and Eve of, the issues that you guys are creating. Excuse me. So epics are mostly very, very, very large, right? So an example of an epic would be like, okay, we are creating a Bank of America homepage. Okay. And what that's gonna do is we're just going to go to the homepage, and that's what our focus is just going to be on, just the homepage. Okay, or a good example would be just the login page, right? We are creating a Bank of America login page. And then on the login page, we're just going to have how many characters we need to create, how many password, what should the password look like, so on and so forth, right? So the epic is mostly the big thing, right, that we need to figure out. So how to create an epic, right? As you can see, this is the form. The person hits on create right here, the create button, and then it popped up. And one thing that is highlighted here is the project, the issue type. This is where you select whether it's an epic, it's a story, it's a bug, or it's a task, right? So this field right here is where you select what the issue is about, right? And then you have the epic name, you have the summary, you have the component, you have the description. Remember, we talked about that right here, right? So the summary name, the description, the components, and so on and so forth, okay? So most importantly, the epic, if you're not getting anything out of this page, just know that the epic is the big umbrella or the grandparents of the issues, right? So additional information can be added through the configuration button, right? So you can configure the forms in such a way that you want, right? That's why I was telling you guys, in each company, it has a way that they've configured the forms that they want you to fill, right? So this one, they have selected that you have to have a component, you have to have a description, the fixed version, the labels, and also the priority, right? These fields are a must that you need to configure, that you need to fill out those information in order for you to fill out the form, okay? Description and priority should be standard, right? So what is standard is the priority of the issue and also the description, right? Those buttons, you can't take them out, okay? You need to always have those in there. Does that make sense? I'll tell you what. Let me give you guys, I don't want to keep going and then you guys get super tired. So let me give you guys like, how many minutes do I want to give you guys? So you grab some water and come back. Let's come back at 8:20. Okay, let's come back at 8:20 and let's continue. All right, guys.
Okay.
So I want to make sure you guys are getting everything that I'm talking about today. So who can pick up, or let's have a discussion as a class, you know, what we've talked about so far. Who wants to go first? We had how many minutes? A whole hour, right? And I want us to have a discussion so we're all on the same page. Make sure I'm not just talking and you guys are getting stuff in there, and you know, with all that meat that you guys ate during the Memorial Day, you still have, you know, you guys look very tired. So we want to make sure you guys are grasping everything that we were talking about. So let's start off with, you know, what have we talked about so far? What have you learned from today? I want to hear from everyone.
We've talked about the Jira application, the things on the banner, the app navigator. We went through each, I guess, function on the main page. And you
Okay.
said that you wanted us to be mindful or make sure we remember things about the backlog, the board, and the create functions.
Okay, perfect. Anyone else?
You said everything that is created also happens in the backlog. Like everything we create, we're gonna see in the backlog.
Perfect.
And
What
then
else?
there are issues. The issues can be like bugs, epics, stories, and tasks. And then you will take us through the issues. We can be summary, description of issues, the environment and the components of the projects. And then before we went, you were just explaining how the epic works and the kind of like different buttons that you can open under the epic portion.
Okay, perfect. And who can tell me what an epic is?
You said it's basically the grandparent of issues.
Okay. And okay, perfect. And what else? What else have we talked about? What's an issue? I'm looking for some keywords, like, you know, what's an issue?
Bugs, stories, epics, and tasks.
Okay. And what else?
The priority of an issue is determined by the stakeholders.
Perfect. That's a very good one. What else?
And it is also like the priorities based off impact, of urgency or something like that.
Yep, you're right on. It's based on the impact and then also the urgency.
The
right?
urgency.
And then remember I set that example of a building being on fire, right? See, you guys are getting it. So, Salis, are you recording? Are you? Salis.
It's recording.
Oh, he's recording. Okay. Hey, Max, I haven't heard from you.
And
What's up?
I'm not. That's one thing I noticed too. Like I tried to use it to relate to Jira in general. When you go to
Mhm.
that backlog, there's a picture of a boat sailing with the web page right is sitting on it, and then you look on the list on the side where it has like deployments and release. Yeah. So it kind of, I start to think like, okay, maybe like a military deployment where like, you go with off to the sea with the boat and stuff like that. So
Wait, what? A boat on here? There's a boat
Beside releases.
beside releases.
You're
Oh,
fucking
you're talking
killing
about.
me.
Oh, okay. I was trying to figure out. I'm like, where's the boat? Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay.
if you go to the actual I think
Release.
it's board or something like,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Okay. Now I see what you're saying. I'm like, what on the backlog? There's a boat. I'm like, what? I haven't seen no boat in the backlog. Okay, that makes sense. All right. So the military people, do you guys understand the analogy he's making? Because I'm not military, so I don't really.
Yeah, that's not gonna work for me, but thank you.
Yeah. Mostly if you're from the military, you're gonna get it, right? It's like sometimes you tell a joke and only people from your country will understand it. Sometimes I think I'm funny, but I'm trying to explain it in English and it doesn't make sense. I'm like, what the heck am I saying? Never mind, let's move on. But it's all good. So far as you're getting it, right? That's what's that? Max?
My daughter, I'm sorry.
No. You had anything to say?
No, I was trying to direct traffic in my house.
Oh, okay. So we've talked about Jira, right? And trust me, when you guys get your hands on it, there's gonna be some more questions that's gonna come in. Okay. The reason why I had to stop here during the epic is because with the story, now we're going to dive into how to basically fill out the form, right? The form that we fill out when we start creating an issue. Okay. Now I think someone asked the question. They were like, "Hey, is the backlog where we're gonna have the user stories?" This is where your question is going to be answered, right? So the user story, it's going to be in the form of as a I want the other. You guys went through user stories, right? Yes? No? I can't see you guys. Sometimes my thing goes away, but yes, no.
Yes.
So you guys have to speak up for me because I lost you guys in the video. I went in presentation mode and I lost you guys. So please speak up for me so I could see. I could hear you guys because I can't really see anyone. So So at the user story level, right? That's where we're going to have. Second, let me turn on my light. The room is very dark. Oh, give me 1 second, so you guys can see me. Okay. Now, can you guys see my beautiful face? Yes, no. All right. So user stories, right? Now we're going to dive into how to, you guys already talked about user story, but in Jira, how do we put user stories? Okay. So remember how I talk about the epic being the big umbrella or the grandfather, the grandparents, right? So the story underneath that epic will be the parent, right? We have the parent underneath the grandparents. So the story will be in a form of, as a whatever. I want the ability to do what the output is supposed to be, right? So are you guys able to hear me now? Yeah. Okay. So the story is basically a subset of the epic, and every user story must be associated to an epic, right? So I tell you, like, the example I gave you guys was we're building a Bank of America homepage. Not the homepage. The homepage is very big, so I'll just use like the login page, right? Within the login page, we're going to have like maybe the username, password, how many characteristics the password is supposed to have, alphabets, special characters, so on and so forth, right? We're going to have all those on there. So we're going to have a story, and then we're going to have like, an epic, and the story is going to be associated with the epic. Does that make sense? So the epic is going to say like build the Bank of America login page, right? And then the story is going to come underneath that epic. Oh, as a developer, I want the ability to create whatever, right? So that the user can log in, right? That's just an example, okay? And then from there, we're going to make sure that each story would deliver one small part of the overall epic, right? So let's say within the login page, we can have like, 3 stories to add, right? That we can put under the login page. We can have like forgotten password. We can have how to fill in the username, right? The characters it's supposed to have. And then we can also have like, the password, how to special characters that's supposed to have for the password. Does that make sense? So the epic is always going to be there, and then we're going to have the subset, right, of the stories. And each story will have an acceptance criteria in the description to identify when the story is done, right? You guys talked about acceptance criteria. Verify that, the user is able to do this. Verify that the user is able to do that, right? Does that make sense? So an example is you can see here, right? Infrastructure 0101. This is what the person wants. And once again, the type, right? This is the form right here that we're filling. The type, the priority, and also the affected version, components, right? The label, infrastructure, epic link. As you can see, this is the epic link right here, right? The epic is infrastructure 01. Okay, that's the main thing that we want, right? And we have the status, resolution, and also the fixed version. I'm gonna dive a little bit deeper into all those, you know, types, but we've already talked about the type, the priority, and also the epic, right? I think someone also talked about story points, but in the next slide, it's gonna have story points, so I don't want to get too dirty into that one. So
Godfrey,
yes,
quick question. I see that it says it is signed to someone. I know you said we would normally reach out and ask them to work on it on the Jira. Can we actually put their name on it? Or is it going off of word of mouth that we told them to work on it?
so who the ticket is assigned to, right? Is that your question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
So
go ahead.
yeah. So it will be based on who the developer is, right? Within the development team, you might have a developer that's, you know, main focus is going to be like on maybe the Bank of America login page, right? It's going to be up to the manager to determine, okay, this developer is going to work on this and this developer is going to work on that, right? And as a team effort, when the story comes in, it's up to the manager to assign the work to a developer, right? Or you, if you are a BA, right, and you know them, you know well that, okay, you know, Jasper needs to, he's a developer and his specialty is the homepage, right? The homepage of Bank of America. If any requirement comes that deals with the homepage, you can automatically just assign it to him, right? But in the meantime, you want to make sure you talk to your PM. And one thing that we don't want to do is we don't want to keep bringing issues into the sprint, right? There's a reason why we are doing sprint and we are doing agile, right? We already planned, we spent some time to plan, and we don't want to make sure that even though we've planned stuff, you're still adding more stuff into it. And trust me, you're gonna have this, you know, going into the real world. You're gonna have some stakeholders, they're gonna come up and then tell you, hey, I want you to just do this for me. It's not gonna be a big deal. And there's something called, you guys have to document this now. It's called scope creep, right? It's called scope and then creep, CREEP. So SCOPE and then creep, CREEP, right? What the scope creep does is, you know, it's like you have a creepy person, right? And you guys have like, you know, a whole, you set your eyes up on something that, okay, we're going to DC, right? But the person is telling you guys, okay, while we are going to DC, I know we're going to go by, we're coming from Woodbridge, right? We're going to go by Springfield. Why don't you stop by Springfield so I can pick up something and then we can go to DC, right? But that's not the goal. The goal is to just to get to DC, right? And what the scope creep does is you're gonna have, you know, a stakeholder, right, or a product owner, who it may be, come and then tell you, oh, while you're going to DC, why don't you stop by Springfield and pick up some more stuff and drop it at DC for me? So it's up to you, the BA, to let your team lead know that, hey, we are going to DC, but this stakeholder wants us to stop by DC. Is that okay? Stop by Springfield. Is that okay? Right? If they say yes, it's okay, go ahead and add it, then you go ahead and add it. But if they say no, the real agile, it's supposed to be no. As a Scrum master, you have to learn how to say no. So it doesn't matter even if he wants us to stop by Springfield, I mean, Arlington, right? at the stop for just a quick second, because remember, everything we are doing is time-based, right? And we have 2 weeks. We've already planned. We don't want any cancellations or anything to slow us down. So if it's that 2 weeks that we planned 10 tickets to work on, we are focusing on those 10 tickets. So the scope creep is basically the customer adding more stuff to the work that you guys have already planned. Does that make sense?
Can I read a definition? Because you lost me with all that other stuff that you were talking about.
With the definition, you need a definition.
I've looked it up because you kind of just lost me with the road trip and all that stuff.
Okay, so let's say.
No, I'm trying to read something to you because I understand what this is saying. So I need to know if this is correct on that. That way I can write it down.
Yeah.
It says scope creep in project management refers to changes, continuous or uncontrolled growth in a project scope at any point after the project begins. This can occur when the scope of a project is not properly defined, documented, or controlled. It is genuinely considered harmful.
Okay, so if I were to read this one out to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You understand it, but maybe someone on here might not understand what it means, and that's something that this, because I understand you're kind of like being in the environment and you're technical, right? So you will understand it based on what you've read. But if I was supposed to put that on there for someone,
Oh no, I
most of the
understand. I just
people
need to, for myself. I just need to know, is that correct? So I can write that down. So I
that
can.
that's correct. Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay.
But yeah, just for the sake of class, I just want to give that as description just so everyone else understands. That's the reason of the main description. But I don't want to ask you guys and then you guys tell me, oh, scope creep is when we are going to DC and then you stop in the middle of the road, right? But I'm just using that as an example. Okay, don't quote me when you say that. But does that make sense, guys?
So basically something that's trying to mess you up while you're in the midst of a project.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly the whole point of scope creep.
Okay.
They are always, and trust me, the stakeholders that are doing that already knows what they're doing and they know they're not supposed to do that, right? So how do you avoid scope creep is, as a BA, you have to always get your manager involved, right? To let them know that, hey, we have this amount of work that we're doing and this stakeholder is trying to add some more stuff to it. Does that make sense? Okay. So each story, again, will have to have an acceptance criteria. You guys know about the acceptance criteria, which is to verify that, this is, correct and this is correct, just the verification purposes, right? Okay. So we talked about creating a user story, and now we're going to talk about creating a subtask, right? So the subtask is going to be more of like, so the user story, the epic is the grandparent, right? In ServiceNow, Kiana, that's how it is in ServiceNow, right? We have the grandparents, and then we have the parents, and
You talking
then
about
we
the
have
parent
the,
ticket and the child? Is that what you're talking
yep,
about?
exactly. So that's the same thing here, right? So the epic is the grandparent, right? And then the story will be the parent, the subtext will be the children, right? So, or the child, or we'll say in ServiceNow. So tax will be more of like, the children, like I said, right? And within the subtask, mostly it's the subtask is like something that mostly the developer does to, kind of like a self-note story that they do to say, okay, I have a task to do this before, you know, I develop this application, right? So the subtask is used as a part of the user story, right? Developed during sprint planning, estimated and tracked hours at this level, right? Hours are used as a metric to validate story points estimates, right? So like most of the time, you're gonna have a story and then you're gonna give a developer, hey, can you look into this and tell us how long it's gonna take you to develop this? And then he's gonna create something like a subtask to say, okay, I need to investigate into this to see how long it's going to take me, right? So this is like maybe a step. You'll be like, okay, for me to develop this login page, it's gonna take me maybe 4 or 5 business days, right? And with story points, based on whatever the team does, right? A team could say, okay, our story point is between the scale of 1 to 5, right? Or it's between a scale of 1 to 10. I'll use a simple example so we are all on the same page. From 1 to 10, 1 being maybe it's going to take a day, 2 being maybe it's going to take 2 business days, or 10 being it's going to take 10 business days for me to complete this work, right? So once again, each organization have the way of tracking their story points, right? Story points could be tracked in so many different ways. Some people use the Fibonacci numbers, others use regular numbers and so on. People also use hours and so on and so forth, right? So it's based on the organization. And once again, developers mostly will create this subtask to say, okay, I need to investigate into the Bank of America login page, right? On how long it's going to take me. So then he'll create a subtask for himself, or maybe as a BA standpoint, right? I need to make sure I have documentation on, this part, like let's say the login page, right? So I need to create a subtask for myself to meet with a stakeholder to discuss about this. So he'll probably, you, the BA, will probably create a subtask and link it. Remember, every story, right, that you create must be linked with the epic, right? So every story in every issue that you create in Jira needs to be linked to an epic. All right. Always make sure you are referencing the grandparents of that issue before you put anything in there. Okay. So an example is this, the issue type, it says subtask, it has the summary, it has the reporter, the components, the description, the priority, and then also the label. As you can see, right, look at the form here, right? The things that we need to fill out here is different from what was on here, right? Versus what was on here. Where is it? See? You see how creating an epic has a different, form of fields for you to fill versus this one here has a different one, a subtask. So each issue type that you're creating has a different view that you see in order to create that form. Does that make sense? So always pay attention. Now, one thing that I want to highlight is when you're in Jira, okay, you are creating an issue, right? Let's say I go into create, right? And then I pick an epic, right? And then I create that epic, okay? And then I say create. I know it's not gonna let me create because I didn't do anything. When I create the epic and then it goes to the backlog, right? Now, when I come back to create another issue, the last issue type that I selected will be the one that will be on. Does that make sense? So if I pick an epic and then I create,
Question, basically, as if you're trying to continue it or add on to the, what you already created, right?
Yes, Jira always thinks that way, right? So that's a common mistake that most BAs will make, right? So if I come in and then they tell me to create an issue for the Bank of America homepage, right? Because there's an epic already on there, right? And then I come and instead of me to check to make sure I'm not clicking epic, but I'm clicking maybe a story or whatever, which Jira haven't been configured right here. But you should see stories and epic and bug and so on, right? The issue type. Once I click on that, right, I always want to double check and make sure, okay, am I creating a story on Epic, right? And always make sure that you're associating that story to that Epic. And I'll show you guys how to associate stories later on. But for today's purposes, I just want to run down the PowerPoint and, next time we dive into it and I give you guys access and you guys are playing with it, it will make more sense. But for the meantime, let's just deal with this one. Okay.
A question.
Question. Oh, sorry. I
No,
was asking,
yeah.
are you allowed to like edit when you make a mistake? You don't check and you put in an epic instead of a story or something. Does it allow you to go back and change it?
Nope. So
Oh,
Jira will not allow you to do that. Sometimes depending, right? Sometimes depending on back then it used to not allow you to do that. But now there is a configuration where you can retrieve those information. But before you do that, remember I told you guys everything that you do on Jira is tracked. You might want to let your team manager know, right? Your scrum master. Tell him, hey, I was supposed to create a bug or I was supposed to create an epic and I created a bug instead, right? So that he's aware. Because even if you don't tell him, when he click on the ticket and look at the history tab, he's going to know that you probably made an error, right? So it's always best. And do not delete anything, please. Do not delete anything in Jira. As an admin, I have the right to delete, right? But as a user, if you're a BA, they're not going to give you access to delete. But if for some reason they give you access and you're able to delete, please do not delete anything. Comment underneath that issue and let your team manager or whoever it is delete that issue for you. Let them come into conclusion. Okay? Because it could cost you your job. You don't want to be the one deleting stuff. Okay? Someone else had a question.
Yeah, I was a bit confused with you said every story has to be linked to an epic, right?
Yeah.
So if we selecting or if we're working right now and then we have to select the subtask, we still have to select the epic in order for us to start our work on the subtask.
So the subtask, right? Even though you have the subtask, it still have to be linked to the parent, right? Because remember, it's a family based, right?
Okay.
So I was saying I was going to show you guys how to link it, right? For now, all you need to know that it's associated with an epic, right? And that's all you need to know. Every issue that you put in there needs to be associated to an epic, right? And I'm going to show you guys later on how to link those issues. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. No worries. Any questions? I want to see if someone is sleeping so I can pick on them. Who is Nanajwa Singh? I see like it's very dark. I can't see anything from Nanajwa. I just wanted to see if I can pick on someone, but do you guys get it? Is it making sense to you guys? Yes, no? Trust me, be honest, because you guys know I'll just bring some pop-up quiz, some pop quiz. Like, I'm just like, look at Yolanda. Stop rolling your eyes at me. I'll just be bringing some pop quiz, so you guys need to pay attention and take good notes. And I'll make sure this time around we will send you guys the PowerPoint. Okay. So next class, the first thing is going to be a quiz. You guys, I love quizzes. When I was in school, I used to hate quizzes, but now I get to do it to you guys, and I love it.
Maybe you should make some for yourself to take since you love them so much.
Don't worry, I'll do something for myself. Okay. I don't want to get into creating sprints right now, right? I basically talked about user stories, right? And Epic and all that. So refresher from anyone. You guys, it's open up to you guys. We want to make sure we understood everything, right? And we are all on the same page. And trust me, when you guys get into the project version, you're gonna come to me and say, hey, Godfrey, how do we do this? And I'm going to refer you to this recording. So if you have any questions, please ask now.
So when is
or
the
forever.
project?
It's coming. It's coming once I'm done with the Jira
Like
stuff.
1 week, 2 weeks?
Yeah, maybe it should take me about 2 more classes, and I should be done with my PowerPoint. So let's say next week, Wednesday, I should be done. And we'll start breaking. So next week, Wednesday, probably we'll start breaking you guys into groups. And, we'll talk about that when we get there. But yeah, that's the plan.
Okay.
Yolanda, you're the one fighting for the group. I really want to see it. And trust me, it's going to get super fun when you guys are in groups. And I want to hear from what Yolanda did, whoever is in Yolanda's group. I'm gonna put you guys on blast. Any questions? Does something don't make any sense to you guys? Kiana, are you seeing differences? Is it making sense? I like to pick on Kiana. I don't know why.
I'm
And
confused
Abbas.
nobody, but a lot of the stuff in like so now, like this, like a sub story or whatever, you have like requests and tickets, and you can attach tickets to certain requests, but it just depends on what you're doing in
Yep.
service now to kind of go through that. But I mean, I don't feel like it's hard. Really.
Hey,
But people gonna have to touch it. Well, I am just gonna have to go through it, touch it.
Yep. See, and it's better than me just reading the PowerPoint to you guys, right? At least I went in there and I showed you guys, and it's helping, right? Or is it not? What is going on? Why are y'all laughing? Am I missing anything? I see Kiana and Yolanda just cracking up.
Were you throwing shots at Samuel and Cyrus?
What? No.
Throwing shade. You was, Godfrey.
Shades.
You was.
No shade.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Sam and Silas, for throwing shades, but I'm not throwing shades. But hold on. Is it making sense? No, I just want to make sure you guys are right.
I think
Okay,
it makes sense. It would be
but
better when it's in
when we
front of
actually do it.
everyone, because like you can read this all day and show us certain stuff, but like even when I ever first started and I started service now, you do the same thing. You had a PowerPoint, but until you get into it and make a couple of mistakes or something, that's when you
Yep.
kind of remember where you're supposed
That's
to go.
when you get that. Yeah. And this is to prep you guys. And trust me, it's okay, right, for us to make mistakes, right? But just make sure you are communicating, right, to the right people, just to make sure you're correcting your mistakes. But I'd rather have you make mistakes, right, and notify me so we, as a team, we can see what we can do to solve it, than go out to the client and then go make a mistake and make the whole team look bad. That's how you lose your job. So always remember, you guys are working as a team. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns? No.
My
So you
only
guys ready
concern
for the
is,
quick?
I have a
Yeah.
concern. My only concern is, can we please get the videos and the PowerPoints
Trust me.
in time too? Because some of us
Kiana,
get like,
Kiana.
being around, so
Okay,
we
now I
rely
tell
on
you
it.
guys this. If we get you guys the PowerPoint and I come to class and I ask question about the recording and you guys have don't get the answers right, all of you guys are gonna buy me lunch, dinner, or whatever it
Man,
is.
all of you
To be
guys
honest.
over
Rent was
here,
just due.
all of you guys over here trying to throw me under the bus. There's only one video missing. So don't say, can we get the videos? Like, I haven't sent all the
Like
But sometimes
Nah,
it's
I
a
was
Silas,
little
away,
bit
so
late
that's
though.
why I'm
Sometimes
Silas,
it's a
you
little
didn't
bit
hear
late.
from me. Oh. I didn't say anything. I'm just observing.
Yeah, man. Don't try to throw me under the bus over here, man.
Oh, we don't turn on the bus. Like me, I was
I
My
away.
know
hands are up too.
I know what these classes are doing.
You
First
know,
they started off with me and Salis saying
you
I'm
know,
throwing shade at Salis.
one time I sent a video, I realized that it's pointless because one time I sent a video, everybody's complaining, I haven't sent the PowerPoint or the video, but you haven't even checked your emails. Thank you. See, always trying to blame
Be
something on somebody, man.
Nah,
be
Silas. It
honest.
was only one person that complained. It was only one
What?
person.
So
All right, it was
wait,
me, but
you
you
can't tell
had
when
sent
people
it right
haven't checked
It
their
before
was
email.
class.
way more than one person. It was way
I
more.
got a folder specifically for you. Like,
Okay, Kiana, we'll come back to that. I'm
Hey.
not here. I'm not here. Bye, guys. I'm not here.
So to be honest, how many of you are actually goes through the whole video to play and listen again?
I just go through the
Really?
PowerPoint.
I do, because some of
Really?
the time I'm at work, so I need the video. Like when I make the
You guys,
class, I need a video to
yeah,
like go back to it. So whenever I
yeah.
don't have it, it's really like it's hectic for me.
I know you were about to say frustrating, but Salis will get you. He only missed one.
No, but even
And you
though,
guys,
but even the
Now
ones he doesn't miss be
quick.
a little bit late though sometimes, a little bit.
but the thing was, okay, hold on. The thing was, I told you guys to take good notes, right? That's the
We
key
couldn't even
word.
pop quiz. You know what I'm saying? Because we didn't even get the stuff. But I ain't even mad. Thank you, Silas. Thank you.
Yeah, what you complaining for? You already know service now, man.
That's like
Like
the
you,
most sarcastic thank you I've ever heard.
like, you should be the last
That
person
thank
to
you
be
is not
complaining
going through at
about.
all.
You should be the last person to be complaining about a service now video. Like, come on.
Like, really? Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I will. I
Don't
take the blame for
hate the
this.
game. I hate the game.
Oh, Silas, when can we expect the video? I'm asking for a friend.
I'm
Tomorrow? By
sending it
tomorrow?
to you guys as we speak, so you guys can leave me alone, man.
Okay, we'll leave you alone until next week.
And
Yeah.
and I'll send the PowerPoints too from last class and this one. You guys can blame me because I didn't send that to Salis. Last class, I was getting ready to go eat my, for Memorial Day. I was